Well, hey everybody, and welcome back to D-Ray's shop. Today I'm working on this here Yamaha 660 Grizzly. I'll be putting a front CV boot on it. So let's get started. Now that I got that wheel off there, I'm going to zoom in here and show you a little closer look at this torn boot. There it is right there. Now you got an outer boot and an inner boot. You want to be sure that you check these from time to time, because if you do tear a boot, it's not that big a deal. They are not that hard to replace. But if you run one with it torn like that and it gets a lot of mud and dirt and stuff in there, it'll ruin that joint and you'll have to replace it. Now in order to get this CV shaft out of here, there's a few things we've got to remove first. Basically we're going to disassemble the entire knuckle assembly here. So what we're going to start with is the brake caliper here. Then we'll remove the axle nut, and that will allow us to remove the hub and rotor assembly. Then we'll take loose the tie rod end and then the lower and upper ball joints. And at that point we should be able to remove the knuckle, and then we should be able to extract the shaft out of there. I'm going to start by taking this little brake hose retainer clamp off the top of the knuckle here. Then you got two 8mm bolts that holds the caliper on. Now we got the caliper off, we'll remove the hub and rotor assembly. Next I'm going to go ahead and remove this debris shield. Now it's not absolutely necessary to remove this while you're doing this operation, but this particular one here is kind of warped up along the bottom, and so it's just got 3 screws that holds it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it. And I'm going to take this thing and put it down on the vise and take a mallet to it and see if I can't straighten it out, make it look a little better. And it'll make it a little bit easier to get at the tie rod ends and some of the other hardware on this knuckle. Next I'm going to remove the cotter pin and the nut that holds on the lower ball joint, the upper ball joint, and the tie rod end. And then we should be able to get this knuckle off here. There we go. Now we should be able to remove the knuckle. There's your knuckle. Now to get the CV shaft out of here, all you have to do, it just has kind of an internal circlip on this inner joint that holds it in place. So just kind of give it a couple of good yanks. There we go. It comes right out. Now we'll set this on the workbench and start to get that old boot off there. All right, well, I've got our CV shaft here on the workbench. And of course, this is our outer joint with the torn boot on it, and this is the inner joint. Now, the way these shafts are made, and most ATVs are like this joint does not come apart. The inside joint does. As a matter of fact, the inside joint is designed to float in and out. And it has to be able to do that because as the suspension works, this shaft needs to shorten and lengthen as the A-arms go up and down. So what we'll do is we'll disassemble this joint here, we'll completely remove it and we'll set it aside. Then we can disassemble the boot on this one and we'll just slide it right off the end of the shaft. Then we'll clean it all up real good, repack it with grease, and then we'll reassemble the whole thing. Now, what I've done here is I've cleaned this thing up real good, because since we are going to be reusing this boot, The boot kit comes with new clamps for both boots, but we're only going to be replacing the one. So you want to kind of clean all this area up as best as you can before you start disassembling them. That way you don't get dirt and grit down into the joint. Now, there's a couple of different styles of clamps that you're going to run into. Now, this is what's the kind of clamps that are in the boot kit, and these don't require any special tools. In fact, here's an old one that I've saved, and the way this thing works is just simply kind of levers over and it gets the proper tension on the boot, and then you got these two little tabs here that you fold over and that locks it in place. Like I say, you don't need any special tools for that one. Now this shaft here has what I kind of call more of an automotive style CV clamp on it, and you've got to have a little special tool to pinch these little nubs together so that you can pull this band over and get it off these little hooks right here. All right. Now, I do have a special tool for that, and I actually bought it at my local parts store. This is a regular CV clamp tool, and it was less than $20. And the way this thing works is you get it on the little nubs, just like that right there. Matter of fact, I'll bring it up here where you can see it. And you just give that a squeeze, and what that does is that draws the clamp in. Then you can raise it up off the little hooks, and that releases it. Then you just take your clamp off and set it aside. We're going to go ahead and remove all 4 clamps the same way. Now we have all of the clamps removed, we'll begin to disassemble this joint here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this boot and just kind of slide it down this end of the shaft to kind of get it out of the way, just like that. Yeah, nice and greasy in there, isn't it? Okay. Next, you want to kind of scope the joint in a little bit, and there's a series of grooves in here that the balls and things in the CV joint run in. There's a circlip, here's the new one out of the kit, that keeps all this together. That's what retains it in place. So what we want to do is we want to dig in there and pry that out. Just take you a tool here, it's a little pick tool, and get up under the edge of it just like that. There you go. That's got your retainer. We'll set that aside. Now we should just be able to pull the joint right out, just like that. That's your cup. We'll set that aside. Next, we'll wipe off a little bit of the grease on this ball joint in here. And it's kind of hard to see with all the grease in there, but you've got a circlip on the end of this shaft. So we'll take our circlip pliers here, ease that off of there. There you go. There's your circlip. We'll set that aside. Now we should be able to pull the little ball joint right off the end of the shaft. Just like that. Now once you get this off here, you need to be sure to remember which direction this thing goes, because it'll go on either way, but there is a proper way that it goes. This bearing cage here kind of sets up a little tall on the outside, and on the inside you'll notice it's almost perfectly flush. So just remember that the flush side goes down. So we'll set that aside. And now we should be able to just slide the boot right off the end of the CV shaft. Now this is our boot that we're going to reuse, so we want to set this aside. We'll clean this up and reuse it a little bit. Alright. Now all we got left is our old torn boot. Just pop it loose and then slide it right off. There's your old boot. We'll discard that. Alright, so now we've got all this disassembled. Now we're just going to clean everything up. Make sure we don't have any dirt and grit inside this joint here. Get all this old grease out of here, and then I'll show you how to repack everything and how to reassemble it.